Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the tangent graph with you guys too. So what I've done is take your paper, kind of fold it over so that the tangent column is next to your angle column. So now the tangent ratio is going to be our y value. And so we need to put some decimals on here. Tangent of 0, you should have 0. Pi 6, you have 1 over square root of 3 or square root of 3 over 3. And that one is going to be about 0.6. Pi 4ths, you have 1. Pi thirds is square root of 3, which is about 1.7. And then we have undefined. So we're going to talk about what we'll do with that. And like I said before, after quadrant 1, everything just repeats in some order. Sign changes. So now we have negative square root of 3 or negative 1.7, negative 1, negative 0.6, 0. Negative 0.6, 1. Not negative, sorry. Positive 0.6, 1, 1.7, undefined, and then negative 1.7, negative 1, negative 0.6, 0. All right, so just like we did before, we're going to take our graph. I folded the paper so we can fit it all on here. But we're looking at the third graph, so be sure you mark it in the right spot. The third graph, the tangent x graph. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to plot these values. So remember, these are pi 6. If you want to go ahead and draw in your little marks for the pi 4 so you don't forget them. All right, here we go. So we have 0, 0. Then we have pi 6, the first mark, and 0.6. Well, this is still going to be 1 and negative 1. So 0.6, right in here. And then we go up to 1. Pi 4's 1. Then we have pi thirds, 1.7, which is almost at the top up there by the arrow. And then we have the undefined. Well, remember when we were doing rational functions, if there was a place that was undefined, we drew in an asymptote. That's what happens here. We have an asymptote at pi halves. All right, then at 2 pi thirds, we have negative 1.7, so down here. At 3 pi fourths, negative 1. 5 pi 6, negative 0.6. And then pi 0. All right, I'm going to slide this up so we can see the rest of these. So hopefully you can see those. All right, so at 7 pi 6, we have 0.6. At 5 pi fourths, 1. 4 pi thirds, 1.7. And then at 3 pi halves, we have another asymptote. It's undefined. All right, then with 5 pi thirds, we start down at the bottom, negative 1.7. 7 pi fourths, negative 1. 11 pi 6, we have negative 0.6. And then at 2 pi, back to 0. Okay, so let's look at this. In between these two asymptotes, we have this little continuous section, which we're going to join together. And when you join those together, it looks a little bit like the cube function graph. Over here, we only get this portion of it, the right-hand side, and over here, we get the bottom portion. But if we were to see the full picture for this unit in between pi halves and 3 pi halves for this unit of pi, we get a full cycle of that graph. So, same as before, we're not going to plot all these points on the left-hand side, but we're going to use the pattern, because we know the pattern is the same if we continue around the unit circle, to draw the other side. So if we had an asymptote here at pi halves, we're going to have an asymptote over here at negative pi halves, and another one at negative 3 pi halves. And I know that my 0 is going to be at negative pi, and another 0 at negative 2 pi, just like they were here. And I think I'm going to put in the 1s, which are at these fourths. So at the fourth right here, I would have a negative 1. And we'll use that to kind of help us draw that section of the graph. And then we know on this side at a fourth, it would be up at positive 1, and on this side, down at negative 1, and we can use that to help us draw in the graph. And then here, we know this is going to be going up first to 1, and we get that section of the graph. So this would be the graph of tangent x from negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi. So what we're going to do for the remainder of the period, I would like for you to take your chart and write all of your ratios in decimal form like I've done for sine and tangent, and then take your papers here and plot the rest of these graphs. So your homework or your work today is to do the cosine graph as well as the cosecant, secant, and cotangent graphs.